Hello, precious people. I'm Jacqueline Parks. Welcome to my studio, Stampin' Turtles. Today we're going to be doing a landscape, which I just did for a class yesterday, but I thought it would be helpful to show you step by step how I go through the process of creating this. Oh, I am going live. That is good. I like to hear my voice. Sometimes I go and it's not audio, so sometimes I go and it's not visual. So we always double check that. I'm a one woman show here, y'all. One woman show. So this is what I do for a living. But yesterday I did have a class. We had 8 people. It was awesome. Everybody did great. I might even show you a picture at the end if I have time and of our paintings. And what else did we do? We always start with like a little stamped image, but we didn't take a picture of those. We should have, because some of those were really cool. Like this lady brought her stamp that was flowers, and it was so pretty. But sorry, I'm running a little bit late. It is 4 after 10. I try to go live at 10 a.m. on Monday every week. Unless there's like a holiday or something that's going on. But today I did a little different routine. My daughter got me up at like 7 a.m. and we went to the gym together. And we were waiting at 9 o'clock. I said, we got to leave. And she hadn't done her last leg machine. And there was 2 people jumping back and forth on it. And then they just sat there and chatted. And I was like, So I went over and I was like, can we get on your machine? Are y'all done? And they're like, oh, yeah. And so my daughter was like, ooh. But you know what? We got to be bold, don't we? We got to be bold and say, hey, I need that machine. Anyway, so we did really good. She did leg day. I did arm day. And I'm trying to get down, you know how I started MediShare, and I have to kind of get my BMI down. So that's kind of why I'm doing more gym workouts and trying to eat a little healthier, which I think it's good anyways. Even if you don't need to lose weight, it's good to move your body and work out. But yeah, yesterday's class was so good, and I really came to understand that there is a process for what's first, what's second, what's third, basically how you approach a landscape and what you should do first, what you should do second. And I just wanted you guys to see it too, because I think it's helpful, especially if you're just starting out with watercolor, how to process creating a painting from a reference photo. And my reference photo, I actually had AI create it for me. I wonder if I have it on here. I've not set it up, and I'm so sorry. Let me see if we can just set up a new scene. Sometimes. So I'm really late. I had to hop in the shower. I had to get dressed. You don't want to see anything like that. So I was like, we're just going to hop right on. We're just going to do this. We're just going to enjoy being a little disgruntled with the hair, a little disgruntled with maybe the clothes. Let me see if I can find that photo real quick for you, because it was really a great photo. I will put a picture of, I'm going to put a picture of us too on here, because that would be great. I don't know. Some people are like, no, don't show it. But you know what? I enjoy seeing a whole group of people's photos, because I think it's really cool. And let me see. It's really big. Normally I spend like a half hour getting ready for y'all's videos, but for today we had to go live at the last minute. So let me see. I got that one, and then let's do a new one. Let's do a new stage. Maybe I should do a little, if you're interested, let me know in the comments. If you're interested in learning how to videotape yourself painting, if you're interested in starting your own YouTube channel. I am by far not a professional in any shape or form when it comes to that. I've taught myself from watching others on this great platform called YouTube. learned how to watercolor off of YouTube. In fact, Paul Clark, if you don't follow him, please go over to his channel and like and subscribe his channel. He's amazing. I hope to someday go see him in person and take a class with his retreats that he does. He goes to Spain, he goes to France, he goes all over the place. There's cruises down the Seine River, and I think that would be amazing to go down. So I am looking online. I mean, on my old photos here, I'm going back like decades here, right? Not really, but it seems like I'm scrolling through. I cannot find what AI generated for me. Did I even save it to my photos? I thought I did. I asked AI, can you create me a spring landscape with flowers and a cottage? And that's what it came up with. It's so amazing what it can do. Oh, here it is. I found it. Y'all, this is awesome. So I just wanted you guys to see this. So let me quickly transition so you can see what AI came up with. Look at how gorgeous, y'all. That is just gorgeous. And I told AI what I wanted. And this is my reference photo. And it even has rain in there, which we didn't do. But I like the sky, and I like the flowers, the daffodils. I like the fence. Everything about this just really appealed to me, the road. And even though mine did not turn out the same, do I even have mine on my desk? Let me see if I have mine. So I ended up, let's see. Let me see if I can do the overhead, because we got to have the overhead to show you guys what I did. So that was AI, right? AI generated, and this one is mine. And let me see if I can shine my light on it a little better, because it gets a little dark on this side. So this is very similar to what AI did. See, what do you think? Not too shabby, huh? I did pretty good. I do think that when you're approaching painting a landscape, it doesn't matter if you have a real photo or if you have something else to go by, like an AI generated. Sometimes AI has really weird transitions. Like, I don't know if you can see in here. It did an amazing job, actually, I think, but it almost stylizes it more. So I think what ended up happening with mine, and you may not be able to see it too much, but look at the blooms. So some people don't like all them blooms. I like them because I think they're just something you can't control. And for me, doing a painting, it's about experiencing a connection with my paints, the paints. And I love the Lord, so I pray before I start painting, and I enjoy just allowing Him to use my hands to create something. This one's the one I did during class, and I kind of like it too, but it was definitely different because when you're standing up, walking around, and you don't really get to focus as much on your own art. So it's okay. I left out all those trees in the background up there at the top, but everyone was saying they liked my sky. I kind of like the sky too. So it definitely didn't have the blooms that the other one had, but it definitely is unique and pretty. I do like it. It turned out all right. It's okay. So today's we're going to do the same thing, okay? And I'm going to show you kind of a quick little, I want to give you guys a little bit of a, like semi-tutorial about drawing, but not in depth, okay? So I noticed that if a few ladies kind of struggled, but, it's possible they never learned how to draw before, which... I've taken several drawing classes in college, and so I know kind of the basics of drawing. And So perspective is a big, huge thing. When I'm looking at the actual reference photo, I can see where like it starts almost at the top and the hill kind of comes down and swoops down and then goes across, right? And our little our little building is right around here. And really, it's not important. These are not the important parts of the landscape, but just getting a little bit of something in there, right? You want to have a little bit of something. And it does have a little bit of a tree line here. Um, and then it did have some of those little spindly trees up here, which I may end up putting on this one if I want to. But right about here is where I've seen the mistake is made. So the in the reference photo, I see a road that goes off over this edge past the house. So you can't see it once it goes past that edge, but you don't want it to be real big because that's far, far away. Look how little this house is. But you're going to see bigger flowers down here, right? So basically, you just let your eye just look at the photo. Just let your eye look at the photo and let your hand be guided by the Lord. And then that's it. So now we got that road. And if you don't like the curve you did, just go back and erase. This is why I tell people hold your pencil way out here. Don't hold it up here. Don't hold it like this. You can't even see really what you're doing. You have to hold it out here and you just let it almost rest on the paper. It still makes a mark. You probably can't see because it's so light. But when you do watercolor, you do not want it to be a dark line. You don't want that. Unless that's your style, always if it's your style. Now I'm going to put that little fence line right here. So I just kind of did that. And the fence posts. So they're going to be further apart right here because that's closer to us. But as it gets closer to the road over here, these fence posts are going to get closer and closer together. And almost indistinguishable right there. And then you can make even a little gate right there. Now these ones are pretty far apart. I may erase that one. And that's what's good about lightly doing this. Because if you do it too dark, it's not going to be good. And then this is what was really cool too. I have there's definitely two little things to go on these fences, but we don't have to do them all. We can use a pen later, which I did let people use a gel pen. And so they were definitely enjoying. And I might move that one over like that. And this is a 9x12. I want you guys to know this is a full sheet of Arch paper. Linda Ball, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you joined me today. Thank you. I'm so glad you like it. It's going to be good. So I just was telling everyone about how to draw when you're trying to draw things. So I'm just doing little shapes right here too for the flowers because I don't want to paint them. And some people use masking fluid. I don't. I don't like masking fluid. But I'm going to put these kind of tall rectangle shapes right here to make the bluebells or whatever they're called. Maybe they're snapdragons. But see up here we're making flowers a little bigger. And back here we're making flowers a little smaller. So that's what gives our dimension and our depth to a painting. So this landscape is finished drawing. The next step, of course, in any landscape, if you are working large, you want to mix your paint beforehand. I always mix less than I should, and you're supposed to mix more than you should. I didn't even get clean water, y'all. Let's see how nasty this is. It's kind of okay. So I'm going to mix up a nice blue for that sky that has some Payne's gray in it. So the Payne's gray I put in this little corner. It's nice and blue and dark, kind of stormy. I think that's really cool. We're mixing the color up. We're trying to get enough of it so that when I do this guy, I don't have to mix more. So that looks like a fair amount right now. Let's see if it's good enough. And here's the thing. Step one for landscape, I always think it's best to do the sky. Okay, so if you're working on a large landscape, you want to mix up your color for the sky. Okay, so I just mixed up my blue. Now I'm going to use some clean water and wet the whole sky. And you're going to notice this is not technically clean water. You should probably get a new cup of water. This one's been sitting on my desk a couple of days. And what you want to be careful when you're wetting your paper, go around your house, okay? Do not paint your house. Now, if you paint where the tree line is, that's fine. It's not going to be a big deal because you go back with a darker color and it'll go over it. But if you needed to have something white right there, you would have to be very careful not to paint your white because you don't want white. If something's supposed to stay white, you don't paint it. Like you keep the paper. Paper is your white. We don't have white. So I want you to see, this is a nice little shine on there. Sometimes people don't put enough water down. I'm already seeing it's drying in here, like not as shiny. And I might have to wet that a little bit more to get some movement because watercolor is about the water. So let me just add a little bit more water just to get that nice and wet. Okay, I want this nice and wet, very shiny. It's looking very good now. So this is perfect. So now what I'm going to show you guys with this blue that we mixed up, you're just going to dab your brush in there and you're just going to randomly do this. And does it have to be perfect? No, nothing has to be perfect when you're painting. It's just fun. But if you notice, I'm already out of paint, y'all. Already. Look at that. And look at that's blooming right there. What if you get excited and you're like, you know what? I want a little bit of blue that just kind of pokes out right around here from the clouds. You can do that. You can go in with that blue because your paper's still really wet. And all of this is going to continue to mix on your paper. So you can do whatever you really want. If you want more blue, you can have more blue. I think that looks good. If you want more dark skies, like let's say you really had a storm go through, right? You want some really heavy duty storm clouds in there, okay? So you can do that. There's no right or wrong. What if you're like, I don't like all them? You can just erase them. Get rid of them. Put them on some paper towels. Get rid of it. There's no right or wrong. But there is some tips and tricks to it to make your life better and easier. But see, that's kind of cool. I like that. I think that looks good. And what I showed the ladies yesterday, which was kind of cool too, is you can pick up your painting and tilt it. And all of the paint can flow into different areas. You can add a little bit more of that blue. I think it's cool to add some of that blue in there. It's kind of just trying to peek out of those clouds, right? It's trying to peek out. So we can lift that and let it kind of flow. It can be good. It can be good just like that. And it's going to continue to do something while you just let it sit there. So what I'm going to do is rinse my brush, kind of dry it and rinse it because I'm done with this one, right? So here's the dilemma that we all have after we paint a sky. We want to paint this, right? That's what you would want to paint next. But guess what? If you paint right up against that wet sky, you're going to have your green of your grass bleed up into there. So what I said, hey, look at this road, you don't even have it touching anything that's already wet. So let's paint the road next, okay? So you'll look at your paint, you get your palette out. You might get a brush that's a little bit smaller. I love this brush. This is a cheap set of brushes I got from Michael's or Hobby Lobby. I can't remember where I bought it, but they both sell it. And I like that there's this chisels at the end. I like the color. You know what? I think I did buy this at Michael's. So I recommend this set to newbies because it's served me well for 5 years and it has not fallen apart and it's beautiful. So this is my brown that I mixed yesterday for the road. And it's basically just your burnt sienna, burnt umber, probably some Payne's Gray, and lots of water. And you don't really need a lot for this one. This road is not very big. It's not covering like the whole, like the sky. So what I did is just mixed a little bit. And I tried to follow my pencil line because that's why I put them in there. That's why I do a drawing beforehand. Because if you don't do the drawing beforehand, you're kind of just going willy-nilly. And some people are good at that. I'm not. I know my limitations. I need to be able to have some direction on my paper to which way to go next. So I like that, but look at how plain it is. It's very same o. And let me show you the AI image again. Is that road all the same color? No. So what do we got to do? So some people, if they paint it a little dark, what you can do is you rinse your brush, you dry your brush, and then you can lift. But see, mine's not really that dark, so it's not lifting much because there's not much there to lift. What I can do is add some color. So I can make some darker burnt sienna in there. I can take a little Payne's Gray and put it in there. I can put a little Payne's Gray in there. I might put some just of that blue from the sky in there. And you're like, whoa, that's too much. It might be. We'll see. We'll see. See what happens if I dry this. And then I just kind of go. See, you can lift it up. But don't be afraid to use your colors that are a little different than what you would think. But I like that. That looks pretty. And I might end up adding that kind of burnt sienna, burnt umber, and just keep playing. What if I want to keep playing with this and just keep adding? You can keep adding, and it can be, you might need a smaller brush, but this one's not too bad. But just drop it in there and let the paint do what it does. Let the water do what it does. I'm liking that. That looks so much better. It's not exactly like the this photo. It's okay though. This is gonna be me. And things do dry lighter than how you paint them. So don't be afraid to use the dark colors on your paintings. So now we've got that, and my hair has been falling out. I don't know why. And like, the pollen has been crazy. I just went out to my car and it was like covered in pollen. Like, why? That's not good. That's not good. Okay, so now I'm looking. What should we paint next? Because this is wet and this is damp. It's very damp. So if you're like me and impatient, you can, use your little handy dandy heat tool by Stampin' Up, which I am a demonstrator if y'all want to order stamps. Sometimes people don't know how to draw, and so I do. In my class, we do the first painting is a stamped image, and we enjoy painting that in kind of like a coloring book, and that just gets us started. Hey, Linda Ball says looks really good. Oh, thank you so much. I'm liking the sky. I am liking. I like the road. I think I'm gonna like the whole thing. But we can dry this. And it doesn't always take a whole lot of drying. It's sometimes just a little bit of heat, right? So now I'm gonna put this so you can see what I'm doing. And I've got my palette and I've got the green right here. We are mixing my green now. So we might as well do the green landscape, right? So I like to put a couple drops of water into my color to rehydrate it, because these are pan paints, not and if I get tube paints, I just squirt them in here and they dry. So you need to rehydrate them with some water. So in here I already have some yellow in there. I'm mixing up a yellowish green, because another point for painting a landscape. So I've just showed you, doing the sky first, mixing up enough color to do the sky, doing your road or whatever is on a different section of your painting. And then you want to paint a lighter color first and preserve your whites. So a lot of these are going to stay white. I'm going to spend a lot of time going around each of these little blobs of white drawings of flowers. And if you don't like doing that, just use masking fluid and you can paint each one. But guess what happens after you paint this with masking fluid? You have to let it dry. And then after it dries, you can paint over it. It's kind of like wax resist almost. You paint over it, it preserves the white underneath, and then after it dries again, you can remove the masking fluid with like a rubber cement thingy, a block or whatever those things are, or your finger, but you got to be really careful not to let it tear your paper. So I don't like the waiting. I don't like the dry time. I don't like all of that. So I don't use masking fluid. I rather just willy-nilly go around each flower, even though you think that's a lot of time, but I'll show you how fast I do it. I'm a pretty fast painter. So right now I got this sap green. Do I like just the sap green? Let's see what happens if I put a little bit of this yellow in there. Get some of that. It's like the gamboge. I got some gamboge is the color. I normally put my yellow ochre in there, but I didn't have it, so I just put gamboge. I thought it was similar. It's a little bit more yellow, but that's okay. So now what do? I showed you where we wet first and put the drops of blue and Payne's Gray to create the sky on a wet background. Now we're just going to do wet on dry, which is another technique that's perfectly fine to do. And what I like to do is just get that color laid down, right? So this is our green, and then just dip it in the water, and look what happens when you just add the water. Not even dipping it in the paint. We're just dabbing water, clean water. Well, maybe not clean, but it's water. So we want it to flow. We want this to be where we don't fear the water. We gotta let the water work for us, right? So I'm just kind of going a little careful right there. But guess what? If it tends to bleed with your road, it's not the end of the world. Sometimes people are all like, oh, it's bleeding into other things. That's part of this process. We're just enjoying watching this process come to life. I already went over one of my little white flowers there. That's okay. We'll just try and be a little bit better about going around all these. And if we're not real great about it, it's not going to be the end of the world, because you can always You can dab it with your paper towel and make it light again. Um, and then maybe the flower isn't there if you go really too heavy with this. And again, I didn't make enough paint. That's like the story of my life. Story of my life. Don't make enough paint to cover it. But that's okay, because like down here is going to be a lot more detail stuff with the flowers and stems and leaves and things like that. So we're just trying to get a basic color down. Real light green. I'm enjoying just kind of going around each one of these little um, spots of white. I can leave extra white places wherever I didn't already draw paint or draw flowers. So it doesn't matter if you end up with more flowers or less flowers. Because no one's really going to know, right? They're not going to be like, oh, that she's missing a flower. Or, oh, she painted way too many flowers. No one's going to say that. They're going to see your painting and they're going to be like, wow, look how cool that is. So now I'm looking at the reference photo that I did, and look at all the dark greens in there. So this is a perfect time to put some of those darker greens. So I'm going to mix a little bit of this darker green in there. It's kind of a bright, it's called Viridian hue or whatever, Viridian. And you can add a little sap green and then see what happens when you add that. You just want to put them here and there. Keep that angle going downhill. See how it's going down the hill? That's what you want. And you can even put some in here around some of these flowers. And if you want to keep your edges soft, just add some water. And the water helps soften those edges. And makes it less, gives it a good transition. And it's really nice. I like it anyways. I like transitioning those things into a softer edge. And that's what it's called loose watercolor painting. And a lot of people are afraid to do the loose watercolors. Why? I don't know. To me, it's easier. So I enjoy it. But see how I just did that? And now it's starting to look like it's starting to look like a landscape already. Oh, Linda Boss says that sky is amazing. Thank you, Linda. I really appreciate it. I kind of like how skies turn out sometimes. It's like, ooh, that one turned out. And you never really know because you're just starting and you're like, maybe it'll be okay. So now we have this side of our landscape. And it's similar in color. There's lots of lighter areas. And of course, under that fence, you see there's a dark green, kind of like mondo grass type foliage. So we're going to put that in there too. But we need to mix our green again. Let me show you guys. So I'll bring this back over here. So I'm using that sap green. We're mixing it up. We want some of that gamboge yellow. Gamboge. If you don't have gamboge, just use yellow ochre or cad yellow, cadmium yellow, whatever yellow you have in there. So look at how much I've mixed. You think that's enough, right? Let's see what happens when I try to put it on here. And yes, I did just go over that fence because in the grand scheme of things, we're going to make that fence dark with some either a marker or a rigger. But look at that. We're already half covering and I'm almost out of the paint. So you do need to mix more than you think. Oh, I didn't keep any yellow flowers over here, y'all. That's all right. That's okay. Maybe the daffodils aren't on this side, right? Maybe they're not. So look at that. I'm trying to keep all my strokes going one direction. A lot of times I see people smearing back and forth. It's not like crayons or coloring that way. It's more of a, you know what, let's just add some yellow in there. Can that look good? Let's see what happens. So that's that yellow gamboge. And I'm rinsing my brush really, really good. Really, really good. And drying my brush. See? It's still kind of got a little bit of color on there, but that's okay. What I might end up doing is lifting. I might lift some paint, and dry. Rinse, dry. And I might lift some paint there and maybe some right there. Why am I lifting a little bit? I'll tell you why I'm lifting. I want it to kind of look like our clouds are creating shadows and the openings in the clouds are creating sunlight coming through. So I kind of like that. And I might even add a little bit of water in there. Sometimes you add water and then it makes these blooms and you're like, I don't know if I like that. And you can always fix something if it's not looking right. You can fix it. You can always remove. See how I'm removing that? That is looking pretty good. I want some more right there. And I'm not even going to do that dark green area under the fence yet. I want that to kind of be more in place instead of spreading out. And a lot of times people have really wet paintings at this stage. And if you put another color in there, it's just going to bleed everywhere. So this is super shiny. I don't know if you can see the shine on that now, but it's definitely, if I put the dark green under that fence, it's going to spread everywhere. It's not going to be just under the fence, and that's going to drive me insane, and I'll have to be like, you know, having a little conniption fit probably. So I don't want to do that. And that's what I think a lot of times we're trying to paint it like an acrylic painting where you can just put the paint somewhere and it's going to stay put where you put your brush. That's not the case with watercolor. In fact, watercolor is very flowing and loose. It's very loose on the paper as is. So we want to make sure that if we're wanting to create a really defined area of color for that mondo grass right under there, we don't want to paint it yet. We got to wait. So sometimes the waiting process is, frustrating too, but I have learned to use my heat tool if I get really impatient. But I don't mind switching around. So like I've just done this, then this. What can I do next? This is fairly dry now down here. I didn't use a ton of water. It's still damp, but that's okay if it's still a little damp. What I'm going to do is paint some of my yellow flowers. And that I am using this cadmium yellow. And I don't know if this is lemon yellow, but this is definitely, I think, cadmium yellow. So I'm just going to go in and paint each of these little flowers. These are my daffodils, right? And I'm just painting them randomly. You can paint more, you can paint less than what you were anticipating to paint. There are a few that are in like the grass area. And I'm just kind of doing this, just letting it go where I want it to go where it wants to go. Just enjoy. This one's on the green right there, so that's fine. I'll just figure it out, maybe. Put one that's like right there, maybe one right there. You can really get creative with this part. You don't even have to stick with what you've done. You can put whatever you want, wherever you want. This is yours. You can enjoy painting it however you want. So see how I did that? And you might be like, I don't know if I like that. Well, I'm going to be honest. There's always an ugly stage for your paintings. And this is my ugly stage right now. So it's already looking okay, but it's still what I would consider my ugly stage. And I don't know if I'm going to put those daffodils over here. One way to put something in randomly, and I'll show you like how much water to use. Look at how much water I've got in there. But watch what happens when I dab sprinkles. These are my little daffodils on the side of the road, on this side of the road. And I don't know if you can tell, but there's a lot of blooms happening. So I may or may not like it. We'll see what happens after a few minutes because it's going to keep doing a process, right? What's cool about daffodils, they have like this little orange center that just kind of gives them a little something that looks kind of neat. And I'm doing it while these are still kind of wet because it bleeds out and it gives that really pretty effect. So those are looking more like daffodils, and some of them are smaller. That's fine. You can put a little bit of this orange splatter in there so that it looks kind of random as well. And that's looking great. I love it. Now we're going to do those purple flowers. And I'm going to start with a lighter purple. This one is, on my palette, there's two different ones. This one's more pinkish. This one's more bluish. So I'm doing the more pinkish looking one. And so these little triangle shapes, they don't have to be perfect little triangles, but I just kind of made them to look like a triangle so I can get the shape of a snapdragon or something, you know. So I'm just doing those real quick. So I have a few of them. I could add more over even the green areas, but I don't think I'm gonna do that. But while these are still wet, I'm gonna go back in and use this darker purple, the bluish purple, and get a lot in there, you know, get the tip of your brush in there and really get some color on your brush. And now I'm just gonna dab little, you can barely see, I need more paint. More paint. There you go. I don't know, can I zoom in? Let me see if we can zoom in. So right there, see, like this is so subtle, you guys. It's so subtle, but it really makes a difference having those colors in there because they're adding a lot of value and depth and detail. This is what's so cool. So sometimes you're like, I don't really see it. What is that doing for the painting? But sometimes it really adds a lot to the painting. And I'll show you really even more what I do. At the end, I'm going to splatter some of the purple in there. I'm going to splatter some of the yellow in there. But I got to do my stems. So I haven't done my stems yet. Let's see what happens if I mix up some of my green now. I'm going to get that green and can't put it on there anymore because that's wet. But I'll mix that up. So we're going to mix up the green kind of right here. Making some more green. This time what I'm going to add is Payne's Gray to my green. Look how dark that is. Y'all, that's pretty. So I'm going to add some stems. And you may need a smaller brush. I like using, almost exclusively use one brush size. But we're just going to do a couple more stems. And vary your angles. You don't want all of these like they're little soldiers, right? You want to have some in different angles. And then I like to do, this is something I like to do, if we can show what I like. So you can start here and go up. That makes your little leaves. And this is what I would call more detailed work, doing something like this, which I'm not a big fan of. But you want to vary the size of your leaves, size of your grass blades. And I'm just adding them wherever I feel like it. Like you may be um, trying to overanalyze how many blades, where to put them, but you're gonna learn intuitively how to do this after a while. I've been doing watercolor now for 5 years, and I'm still learning a lot about how it works and stuff. So I don't want you to be disappointed in yourself if you're not getting it, from day one, because sometimes it takes years to really get good at stuff. And even if you are good at something, it may take 10 years to be a professional at it, right? And even then, you might be like, I'm still learning. Because aren't we always still learning? I feel like we all should never stop learning, to be honest. I enjoy learning, anyways. Um, where did I put that? So I think these flowers are starting to look good. I'm going to add some of this darker green over here now. And see how I'm varying these little stems over here, and I'm just letting the yellow even blend with it and just doing little random splatterings. Um, and so I can make this darker too. It looks like it's darker all the way. Um, so it may be that I need to add some more stuff in there. I don't know. I'm liking how it's looking. And it may or may not be perfection here, but it's going to end up being fun and loose and pretty. And I think people will enjoy seeing it. I think you'll enjoy painting it, to be honest. And you don't need expensive supplies in order to get started. Just start. Start with what you have. When I first started with my watercolors, I used my daughter's set. It was this set, but it was all the original paints in here. So the original paints, this set was probably $5 when it was on sale, and I was surprised how well the paints worked for something so inexpensive. But like you can tell, this has been loved a lot, right? But as I used up all these colors, I replaced them with professional grade. I really just like this palette. It's my favorite palette. I like the lid. So these are what I recommend getting to new students. And but you can do whatever you want. If you have the money to get professional grade already, then do it. Now what I'm doing here is I'm just adding, I think there's some like little patches of darker grass in here somewhere. And we want it to make it look a little bit more. And I didn't really do that in my other paintings, but that's okay. Also, I think we can do that. I think we can do this and not have it bleed. Let's see what happens. Under our fence, right? So it's underneath the fence. And as you go back towards this way, it's going to be bigger. So over here, that is just barely a line. Barely a line. And as we're coming this way, it's growing. It's growing in width. So it's getting bigger as it comes towards that edge. And that's another thing you just end up learning how to do as an artist. You just kind of, you keep practicing. And as you do these things, you'll get better. So I'm going to mix up a little bit more of that Viridian green in there and see if I drop that in just random places, what happens. Looks good. And still, this is not quite done. I'm going to be continuing to work on these areas. And I might add a little darker greens in there. And I like that little grassy look to it. So, you might be like, what? How do we know where to put that? We don't. Sometimes we just guess, and sometimes we're just letting our our imagination kind of say, let's try this, let's try that, right? So now I'm going to make some really watery and put some watery greens in here. I just want to blend them a little bit so that it's not so um, stick figure-y type flowers in there. So I am still trying to not go around. I'm still not going to go over those yellow flowers that I did. Let's see. So I'm just adding here and there a little bit of a darker green. And you can even get really dark with a little Payne's Gray and a little bit of that Viridian Green in there, and see what happens when you add that in there. And just here and there, it doesn't have to be all over the whole painting. It can be in just spots, right? You don't have to do the whole thing. You can even just splatter it if you want to. Sometimes I splatter the green in, but that looks pretty good. I might even go closer to that road now that the road is kind of dry. I kind of like how it looks. I'm just going to add some more just green, maybe a little bit of water. Just water, a little bit of water. And I just like how that looks. That's looking really pretty and loose. I like it. And now we gotta focus on another part of the painting. So like as this is all kind of still damp and drying, I think this area is pretty dry. So I want to do these background trees. Okay, so that to me, we were like debating whether it's mountain or trees. I think it's trees. I used Payne's Gray and green. So I mixed up pretty thick. I want you guys to see how thick. Look at that thickness. That is definitely not a tea consistency. This is almost like heavy cream consistency. Maybe even, I don't know, not quite butter. Butter's thick. But we're going to do this. We're just going to start, and it's called a dry brush technique. And look at how when I hold it on this side, let me zoom in for y'all because that's a very important thing for y'all to see. So see how I'm holding my brush and I'm holding it on its side? As I'm moving it across the paper, you're going to pick up the texture of that paper. And this is something that I highly recommend you practice doing. But see how that sky, I can go way up here now. My pencil line that you can't see is up there. But I can do this and just hold the side of my brush. I can do it above those houses. And see, they're almost like little leaves of the trees, right? Isn't that kind of cool? So I like that. This is kind of a technique that, it's good to try and practice these things and master them a little bit. But you can't just think you're going to do this on day one. Even right now, I'm kind of like, I hope it works when I do this. But I'm trying to make those houses pop. I like how the reference photo has, where is that reference photo? There you are. So look at the reference photo. See those trees? It's almost like they got splattered. And I'm going to add some blobs of white. Blobs of water. Blobs of water. So now I can go in and I can really bring that color down to that grassy area, right? I can bring it down and it's going to be, all of this is background trees, right? And that's why we like to draw our house first or the tree line first so we know where to stop. If we don't know where to stop, sometimes we'll go too far. And with watercolor, sometimes people do something with it where it's, they just paint the whole thing, even if it's, not in layers. I actually like doing layers. I think it's kind of cool. So now that looks like trees to me. That looks like, um, doesn't that kind of look like trees to you all? We were trying to figure out if that is a mountain in the background or a hill. I'm going to raise this one up. I think it would look more interesting to have some of them be a little higher and a little lower. So I'm going to do some a little higher and some a little lower. So it kind of looks more like that. Can you all see? Let me push this over. There you go. So yeah, I think that's much more interesting than the other thing. But you can do this too. You can add some sap green and just put a blob of sap green in there. See what happens. Sometimes I do that. You can experiment, y'all. This doesn't have to be super scientific. You can do a lot of things with it. That's what I love about it. You can do so much with it. So now I got that and it's super wet, right? So let's go back over to our flowers. I got some flower ideas that I've got. Maybe I'm going to use my yellow gamboge and just tap randomly. Look at that. You might be like, ooh, is that going to be pretty? Yeah, it's totally going to be. It's going to be totally pretty. Now I want to do that with the purple. And look at how it kind of gets tiny little droplets and like bigger droplets. I love that. This is so fun. Y'all, it's so fun. And then rinse, gotta rinse. And then I might do some of this for the stems to make some darker stems. And I like that there's some spots that are wet now from the splatters. Can you see what I'm doing? I don't even know. Let's see. But I like doing my videos live for y'all. I know sometimes I get little mistakes here and there. It's fine. I'm not one to hide that I don't know what I'm doing. Sometimes I'm just like, whatever. It helps you all. I hope it does anyways. So now I'm just kind of doing that. Adding a couple more little guys over there. So this is starting to get really popped out. I did notice a little dot right there. Just get rid of that. And voila, it's coming along. I do think these greens under here need a little bit more definition. So we might do that same kind of little technique, the brush on its side, but it has to be less wet and more dry to do that. So your water to paint ratio needs to really be in control. And you only learn that when you start doing this stuff. Because if you don't do it every day, you're going to have where you're not sure what you're doing. And that's the thing that really you'll start to learn over time. As you do it, you'll be like, oh, well, now I know what Jacqueline was saying. So I love that I just added that dark green in there. And this is the green from this trees up here. So I kind of like that. I think that's kind of cool. And I'm going to dry this. And I'm going to dry this with my heat tool just for a second. How are we doing on time? Ooh, it's 11. So this is taking me a little bit longer, but I want to finish this house. That should be dry enough. Let's hope. In the house color, I used kind of like an orangey color for the roof. And again, look at how I'm just doing this. I'm not trying to make this super defined or anything. Your brain can totally imagine stuff. So now I'm doing just a little bit of yellow and brown. That makes my beige color. And I'm going to just put that on the bottom. And I do the whole side, even though that's going to have a shadow. We'll see. I didn't do the windows either. That's going to be last. So see how I'm doing that real quick? Or I hope you saw it. I don't know if I was covering it up. So now we're going to dry that again real quick. And I was telling everyone yesterday to use some blue. So look at this blue color. I'm going to paint that shadow of the house right there in that blue color. And in the reference photo, there is a tree right there. So what you could do right now is just add a thick blob of green. So that's our little tree. And rinse. And I want you guys to try using gel pens in your painting. So like sometimes doing this, so this is a little gel pen. And what I want to do for this fence is just do the little posts. And don't make them so straight. Make some of them kind of lean. I'm trying to still follow where my pencil lines are. Hopefully. This one was pretty good. And so see how I did those posts? They're very faint, but you can still see them a little bit. And then we're just going to add the two little cross posts to them. Very light. It's not the focal point of this painting. The focal point of this painting is, I don't know, the sky, the cottage, the landscape, the road. And I just like using pen sometimes in my paintings. It's just kind of easier to use pen, in my opinion. So now I've got that little road. Now I'm going to do the windows. So I know there was some windows right here. Since I've painted this 3 times, I'm just going to put some in there. Do they have to be right angles? Not really. You know, you can have your house be a little wonky if you want. So that's all I'm doing on that. Just a couple little windows. I'm noticing there's this blob in my road. You may not be able to see it because it's small. But I'm going to just wiggle my brush and it's gone. Wiggle, wiggle. It's gone. So, you know, I've done a couple splatters on here. One more thing. That tree needs a trunk. I'm going to just give him a little trunk and little branches. So just a little bit. But that's basically it, y'all. This is the painting in less than, well, about an hour. And so it's really not too hard to do watercolor if you know kind of the order in which to go. But if you wanted to start with the house first and you're comfortable painting around things, kind of like I did with the flowers, if you're really comfortable with that, this is something that you can break rules. Watercolor is one of those things, there's rules, but then break them, right? You can do what you want if that's what you enjoy doing and you've always done it, you know, a different way. But for me, it's kind of nice to do the clouds in the sky first. I enjoy doing that. And then I know I don't want to be constantly dealing with the bleeds into the wet area, so I have to change it up a little bit, right? But that's about it, y'all. And so I hope that you have enjoyed this. I was going to look up some scripture because normally when I look at my watch when I'm laying in bed, like it's still dark out, and I look at my watch and it says a time, I like to look up scripture for that time. So I think today I'm going to show you guys real time looking it up, right? So I haven't looked it up yet. Let's see what happens. So I remembered 6:36. So let's see what scripture pops up. And I just do it in Google. I don't really worry too much if it's, somewhere else. This is saying, ooh, this is so good. It goes with my scripture or my sermons from church. So it's really cool. Luke 6:36, and it says, "Be merciful, even as your Father is merciful." And we've been talking about like judging and church people like to judge outsiders. And we're not supposed to judge the outsiders, but we are supposed to judge each other, like be merciful in the way we do it, be kind in the way we do it, but call each other out when we see someone is sinning who's a brother or sister in Christ. So that's okay. That is biblical. That is what the Lord wants us to do. But He wants us to judge with mercy, with kindness, with grace, in a way to restore relationship, not to shame anyone and not to cause them to have um, a resentment to the church. We don't do that. That's not the right way to do it. And I've heard horror stories of people who've turned away from God because of people being so judgmental. And I don't want that for you. If you're a believer in Christ and have not found a church yet, because you feel like you'll be judged, I want you to just pray about it and ask the Lord to guide you to a church, guide you to a community of believers. And sometimes it's online at first. I have followed many YouTubers who are Christians. Off the Curb Ministries has really great videos that I think are very beneficial for Christians. He has one just for believers and one for non-believers, but you can watch both channels and get so much out of them. And for me, I get a lot out of them. But it's so crazy that the Lord has given me this one to kind of confirm, because I've always been like, don't judge, don't judge, because that's what the Bible says, judge not, lest you be judged. But we are supposed to judge one another in Christ, because that's how we help each other grow to be like Christ. We're not supposed to be like ourselves. Ourselves are supposed to be dead. We're supposed to put away our desires and our selfishness, and we're supposed to follow Jesus as a servant of the Lord. So that's one of those things that is so hard to do. But if you're in your word and you're surrounded by fellow believers, they help you to do that. I try and help, starting in my own home. My husband and I, we sharpen each other. Iron sharpens iron. And so sometimes we are heated debates, right, about what maybe scripture means. But in the end, we love each other and we have grace and mercy towards one another, forgiveness for one another. And one really cool thing I'll leave you with is that my pastor said, where do you draw the line with people, like before you end up not, oh, I love you too, Linda. Like, where do you draw the line and then you cut off that relationship? It's like, is it low? Is it medium? Is it high? Is it different for different people, like coworkers, kids, husband, wife, or whoever? It's like, where's your line that you're drawing? But the thing the pastor pointed out was that Jesus didn't draw a line. He died on the cross for everybody who is to be a believer in him. He died for your sins. He took your place. Even if you can't cross a line. There's no line too far. Like, that's amazing to think of. So it makes me want to be better. It makes me want to follow Jesus's footsteps even more because of his love for me and how much he forgave me and how much mercy he had for me and still does, like forgives me now. So I just am so grateful for that. And I hope that this little message has helped you as well. I love you all. I pray for you guys, and I will see you next week. Mwah.